All right. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. My name is Amy Radowski, and this is Scott Schweitzer, and this is a special presentation from Clydesdale Media. Before we get started with our special guest, I'd like to remind everyone about some special offers from our sponsors. So RX Smart Gear provides world-class jump ropes, grips, and other gear for us all. Use the discount code Clydesdale15 for 15% off your order at rxsmartgear.com.
Mobility Movement, MVMNT, is a program that teaches you how to increase your capacity to heal, reduce recovery time, and restore your nervous system to peak health. Everyone gets a 7-day free trial, but our listeners get an additional free month when you use the code Clydesdale free month at mobilitymvmnt.com.
And C4 Energy, delivering the most effective, best tasting, and highest quality products for you. Get 25% off when you use the code Clydesdale at checkout at c4energy.com. And today we have with us Paige Semenza. And Paige, you are heading into your 4th Games appearance this year.
That is right. Yeah. Went once on a team in 2017, and this will be my 3rd year as an individual.
And I also believe the 9th fittest in North America.
As per quarterfinals, yes.
Quarterfinals, yeah. But my personal favorite title of yours is that you are an OSU Buckeye alumni. You played hockey for the Buckeyes.
Mm-hmm.
And Buckeyes just got a national championship in hockey.
It's awesome. Like, it was really fun to follow along. Me and my mom just kept, looking at their social media feed and stuff. So it's cool to see the changes that they've made there, to be able to finally bring one home, because it's been a long time.
For sure.
Yeah.
What I'd love to do now is just go back and find out how you got here. So where did you grow up, and what kind of sports were you playing growing up, and how did you get into hockey?
So I am from northeastern Pennsylvania. So I grew up in Pittston. It's kind of in between Wilkes-Barre, Scranton. So if anybody watches The Office, that's usually like my first go-to. For all of those Office fans, I don't watch The Office. I actually haven't watched The Office. So don't ask me about it. So yeah, I grew up here. I still live here. I got into hockey at a young age, probably around 7 or 8. I used to love going to the ice rink all the time. Like, if I wasn't home, I was there. If I wasn't at school, I was there. So we had a friend just offer some hand-me-down equipment, and I just got really into it right away. Kind of just like CrossFit. Like, I drank the Kool-Aid right off the bat. So we got into that, and there wasn't a ton of girls' leagues at the time. So having to travel a lot, play on club teams and things like that was our life. Like, we lived in the car. My mom, my dad, like, we drove everywhere for tournaments, competitions. So, I went to a private school for high school for 3 years. It's called the North American Hockey Academy, called it NAHA for short. It was in Stowe, Vermont at the time. They recently have moved a couple years ago, but it was an all-girls school. It was 40 of us, like enough for 2 hockey teams. And like, we had an A team, a B team, and we traveled mostly up in like the northeastern region of the country in Canada, played a bunch of tournaments, and, essentially we're looking to be recruited for college. So we very much had a college-like schedule as far as school went. It was a lot of one-on-one schooling at the time. I'm not sure if that has changed, since I've left years ago. But so, the time management pieces, things like that get you ready for college and get you ready to play a high-level sport. We prepared for that in our high school years, which was pretty awesome. And then from there, I think it was going into my senior year, I had a few offers from some schools. I think my top 5 at the time was Ohio State was one, University of New Hampshire was another, Boston University. I went and visited there. I think I went to BC and just fell in love with Ohio State. I got to go to a game. Like, they spoiled us on our visit. So, but I just fell in love with it. I fell in love, with the coaches. I just felt comfortable there. So, I'm a big Columbus fan now. Like, I love the city. anytime I get to go back, it just takes me right back into those years, and I loved it.
So with only being 40 girls in high school, are you still pretty close with some of them, or what was it pretty catty?
No, it wasn't catty.
Okay.
We were just so young, and we were from all over the country. We had girls from Alaska, we had girls from Florida, we had girls from Canada. So, you're from different parts of the country. You become super, super close to the time, and you end up going to different colleges, and sometimes some we stay in touch with, some we don't. Some have actually gotten into CrossFit as well. So I hear from them, because they're following along and they're really getting into it. So that's actually kind of a really cool part of it. But the same with college too. Like, if I get to go back for an alumni weekend and get to see the girls and see what's changed, girls are married, they're having babies and, starting families. And it's just really awesome to see the success that they've had. And, that's partly because of where we went and, the school that we went to. But we're from all over the country. So it's, it's hard to really, really keep in touch.
So Paige, when you were growing up, did you have like a youth hockey league, or did you have to play with the boys? Did they have just a women's only? How did that work out?
Yeah. So here, like when I went to middle school, high school, it was playing with the boys. So it was playing full check hockey and, having to get down and dirty and, growing up, boys were going through their growth spurts and they're getting big and, you're kind of this tiny little peanut out on the ice with them. So having to learn to have some finesse on the ice was super important. So you can kind of dodge those bullets of, getting crushed. But as I got more and more into it and got more competitive with it, there are club teams and schools that started reaching out. So prep school was an option. I just wasn't really into the whole prep school thing at the time, but Naha was very different. It was, you go to school, you wear normal clothes, you just have this routine that gets you really, really fit and gets you ready for college. And that's really what I liked about it. And I liked the coaches, Bill Driscoll and his son, Jesse, they were huge impacts on my life. But prior to that, to even get to that point was I played on Team Florida, which, sounds crazy, but we had a club team. Jane Solverson was the one that ran it. And, that kind of really started things for me as far as, getting to college and getting, looked at and things like that. So you have to really put yourself out there. And if it weren't for my mom, willing to sacrifice the time of driving and the money that it took to do all of that, like I wouldn't have been able to. So it really did take a lot of sacrifices, but we look back on it and we don't regret a single thing.
Yeah, I'm bummed where I grew up. There was no youth hockey league for anyone. But I was at the rink every day. I loved ice skating.
Really?
And I think
That's
like
awesome.
I missed my calling. I think I could have
For
been a pretty
sure.
good hockey player.
For sure. Well, you were saying you swam?
I did.
Yeah. Did you swim competitively? Like, is
I
that something
did.
that you try to excel in? Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I actually swam at Ohio State for just a brief
All right.
But he's not
moment
really
of
an Ohio
glory.
State fan, so don't let him fool you on that. He's a fake.
Wait a minute. How are you not an Ohio State fan and you live in Columbus?
That's what I say.
Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, so I'm a Penn State fan.
Same here.
So
all right. I mean, so if Penn State had a team when I was like being recruited, the homegrown factor of that would have really played a part, but they didn't have a team at the time. And it wasn't until like 2 years later that they finally got a women's team, but I still don't regret it.
So my last hockey question is I talked to Carolyn Prevost on Saturday and I told her I was talking to you today. And she said, well, we played against each other when I was at Wisconsin and she was at Ohio State. And I think she was going to talk some smack about them winning national championships and all that stuff.
Of course. They were really, really good. And I mean, that's all there is to it. They were a better team and they outplayed us a lot. And they had a great core group of girls. A couple of them are on the Olympic team right now. And, it's cool to look back on those times and see that we played against each other for a year or two and we're where we are today. And it's, just a different sport being just as competitive. But, back then you wanted to really beat each other, and you didn't have that, that women empowering women kind of feel. And now there's a level of respect where it's like you grow up and you're like, you want to see your competitors doing well as well. So, it's really cool to look back on that and see that I'm not the only hockey player. I've been doing CrossFit now for longer than I've been competing in college. So, I think this is, taken a bit more of my identity, but I'll always look back on that and remember that is, that's where I came from. That's what got me to where I am today.
And she really didn't talk smack. She was super nice about everything, and said that, like, every time she's met you, you're like the nicest person in the world. And it's cool that you have the common background. And I guess I have one more question. She's working very hard to develop a women's pro hockey league, because she thinks that females need to have that target, that they can do something other than Olympics.
Yeah, 100%.
And she's working very hard with that. And I was just wondering if you had any inclination to jump on board with something like that as well.
I haven't been reached out personally by anybody. I definitely think that there is a lot of interest in it, and I would be happy to speak with anyone that is trying to make that happen. Because back when I was in college and graduating, there's not so much to look forward to at the time, except for going overseas and playing, a semi-pro league or something where you still had to work a full-time or part-time job to do what you love. And if, we can make it so that women have something where they can be drafted into it, I just think that would be, incredible. And it would, it gives, for some that are not fully ready to go right into, corporate America or, into a job where your job in college was to be a full-time student, but also a full-time student athlete. So that athlete aspect doesn't just leave immediately. Some people struggle with that, and I was one of them, and trying to fill that void, and, having something to look forward to or something to try to, attack after college is super important. And just, being ready for the real world, because I personally wasn't. And, it took time to adjust to get to even where I am now. So yeah, I definitely, reach out, Caroline. I would definitely.
Well, they're going to have a pro league this year, and it's paid league minimum of $38,000. And so it's actually a legit, and she's been working at this for 10 years.
I'm sure.
So it's so cool that it's come at least this far.
Yeah, I know she still played after college too. I didn't have any involvement in hockey once I graduated. I did a fifth year in college, and I worked a little bit with Ohio State during my fifth year. But after that, I, kind of took some time away from it.
Well, and I think going back to what you said, when you're a competitor, I mean, it's just an innate thing, and it's hard to just turn that off.
Right.
And moving. So once you finish at Ohio State, then where did you go after that, after graduation?
Yeah. So I stayed in Columbus for about another year. I worked in a daycare facility. So I wanted to go to school to be a teacher. At the time, the way the program worked for Ohio State was you had to go to a post bachelorette program or a master's program to get your student teaching in. And that was just the flow of how Ohio State's program went at the time. It's changed since then, where you can get your student teaching done in your 4 years. But I got pretty burned out with school, and I decided to just try to work and figure out what I wanted to do from there. And the more I worked, the more I realized I don't want to be sitting in a school all day. I couldn't sit still. I needed to be active. So I ended up getting into powerlifting from a friend of mine who I knew him since my freshman year of college, John Downing. And I kind of took that for a ride a little bit. About 2 or 3 years, I got competitive with it and went into a USA powerlifting competition that I was just shy of making the Arnold in Columbus. Okay. So it's funny too, because at the time my max deadlift, I think I hit like 290 was like my max deadlift. And to qualify, John was trying to do the math for me. I needed to hit like 360 or 370 for a deadlift. And he's like, let's just go for it. I was like, okay. And when you're trying to qualify for something like that, like I really had no experience, but I had so much adrenaline pumping through my veins that like I probably could have hit like 380, 390 at the time. And I was just like blown away by it.
Yeah.
But in short, I actually ended up just slightly missing the numbers to qualify for the Arnold. But I finished 18th out of like 52 girls for my first powerlifting meet. And that was being in a weight class that was slightly above what I would be in now. So that was really kind of the foundation that I got into CrossFit with, was having that strong, solid lifting background.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you train now with Misfits, right? That's your Misfit athlete.
Yep.
So how did you get involved with Misfits? How did you get in with that programming?
So when I first started CrossFit, I started in 2015 at CrossFit Vertex. And in 2016, I made regionals. Very, surprised to make regionals at the time. But the owner, Kalina, was doing my programming for me. And, just to give me a little bit more than just jumping in classes and doing things on my own, just to give me some guidance. And we ended up becoming really close. And taking that into 2017, when I went out to Timberwolf CrossFit to be on a team, she still did programming for me. And, the gym got busy, things started growing, and, time is of the essence, trying to prioritize time. So Kalina decided to take a step back from doing that. And I was just kind of like, I was lost a little bit of like, where do I go from here? I really want to keep pursuing this. And I decided to follow the blog with Misfit, and it was free at the time. Like, it was just the competitive blog, and I would submit my scores on their Facebook page, and I would just try to compare myself with others, not really knowing any of the other like big competitors. And then when I made regionals that year in 2018, I decided that I wanted to sign up for a remote coach with Misfit. So my mom was down with that, helped me pay for that. And I got signed up with Gabe Garcia. He's one of the founders of Misfit, one of the starters of it. So we kind of hit the ground running, and I told him I wanted to make the games that year. And he, I'm sure had, every athlete that comes in, they're like, I want to make the games. I want to do this. I want to do that. And, he didn't really see the potential at the time. And I kind of didn't either. I just knew that I wanted to try and qualify. And that year ended up being the year that started everything, my individual career.
So what made you go to the upper Midwest to Timberwolf?
So Ohio State was part of that. So a teammate of mine, Kelly Wild, she was on Timberwolf's team for a couple of years. At the end of 2017, we ran into each other at Granite Games. I was there competing individually for the first time. And I had never been out there, which it was in St. Cloud at the time, which was also a rink that we competed at, a team that we played against, which is just a small world to think about. But shortly after Granite Games, she reached out and she's like, hey, what are the chances you'd want to come live with me and my family for the year and be on our team? It was the year that it was still a team of 6. So there were 3 girls, 3 guys. So just, personally, I think it's fate, that happened, but I was super fortunate for that. My parents, we drove out on New Year's Eve. We drove through a winter storm getting out to Minnesota. And then for the first day, January 1st, I was out there for the rest of the year. So that was Ohio State, being the best.
Bringing those connections together, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
How much did you learn from them? Because Timberwolf is a powerhouse in the team division.
Yeah,
they're always in the mix.
Yeah, they always are. So Andrea Nisler was on the team. Tony Cohens is the owner of Timberwolf at the time, and he was just like, he was awesome. I have nothing but good things to say about Tony and the opportunities he gave us as strangers coming into his gym and making us feel like family. I actually think two of the guys, Roderick and AJ, Anthony Davis, are both still out there. So, they uprooted their lives as well, and, found a home out of, just that 1 year, had a huge impact. And, it was awesome. It was a great experience. We all kind of followed different programming at the time, but any team days that we had, like, you have your ups and downs as a team, but ultimately, like, we were there for one goal, and to come out in the top 10 that year, like, I didn't think about it at the time, but it's like, that's really, really, something to bring a bunch of strangers to be on a team and come out in the top 10 and place eighth. So I gained a ton of experience that year, and really kind of found my it factor.
So
is Anthony Davis really that nice?
Yes, he is a very sweet guy. Super strong. It was fun to watch him this weekend and see the progress he's made. I looked at the roster for the guys side, and to see him be out in that top 10 is pretty awesome. Unfortunately, he, bumped himself out of the last chance qualifier, which sucks to see, but that should bring a little bit more fuel to the fire for next year. And just to see that he's on the right track is really cool.
Mm-hmm. So from playing on competitive teams and then competing, team, how did your mindset change from then competing as an individual? Like, was there more nerves or less nerves as an individual?
I actually think that the pressure kind of felt the same. So with Ohio State, I was very good on special teams, as far as, like, if we were, playing down a player, we had a penalty and we were 5-on-4. I was very good at, like, okay, don't let them score. You're under the pressure of, like, okay, you have less people out there. Do what it takes to stop them from scoring. And that was always kind of like, I always had that extra grit in those moments, and found myself, like, excelling in those moments and making sure that, the four of us that were out there, we did not let them score. And a lot of that, that pressure there, and being in high pressure situations, I just kind of excel at. And competing live and things like that they bring out so much adrenaline and focus and intensity. And it's like that just kind of ups my game a little bit. I train alone a lot of the time, and I find that I really, really thrive in an environment where there's, other girls on the floor.
Yeah. And then do you coach still too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. I coach full time, as far as the hours that I put in would be, from a normal job would be part-time hours, but in a gym, it's a little bit different. So yeah, totally. So I put in some hours there every week. So I love it.
And so you're still training a lot by yourself then?
Yeah.
All right. So what does a typical training day look like for you?
Each day is a little bit different. So Mondays and Tuesdays, I coach. Mondays, I coach a pretty spread out schedule. So I don't train on Mondays, just because I'll have an hour and a half to try to get something in, and I really get going, and I'm like, okay, now I have to stop and I have to coach again. So I'd rather just keep my focus on Mondays to coaching, so I can give everyone their best hour of the day. And then Tuesdays, I coach a 9 a.m. class and a 12:15 class. So typically I'll get up and I'll make breakfast, I'll go coach, and I'll do something in between. Excuse me. I usually do like a machine piece or a monostructural piece, just because it doesn't take as much for me to, focus on warming up and hitting any rehab or prehab exercises that I need to do. And then I'll go home, I'll eat lunch after the 12:15, and then I'll do some more training later in the day. So a lift, a Metcon, a skill piece, those kinds of things will come in the second half of the day. And then Wednesdays I'm off. So this morning I did a longer zone 2 piece, and then I'll eat some lunch after this podcast, and then I'll probably get into some more training later in the day. Thursdays are rest days. I try to prioritize some recovery. So my physical therapist also has an infrared sauna. So I'll try to do the sauna session. I'll try to get a PT session in while I'm there and get some dry needling done. And then see the chiropractor and just kind of take it easy. Usually I'll do another zone 2 piece on Thursdays. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday are kind of the heavy training days as far as like I have more time to focus on it. I don't have to shift my attention so much with coaching. Although I do coach on those days as well. But Sundays are kind of meant for just me, which is nice.
Yeah.
Do you like dry needling?
I love it. I love
Isn't it
it.
awesome?
I love it. I have nothing but good things to say about it. Everyone that like comes and they have an issue, I'm like, just go try it. You know, if you really have a nagging injury and you can't seem to figure out something that works for it, try getting some needles. So I work with a guy, his name is John Salva. He owns his own physical therapy business, and we have been doing it for about 4 or 5 years now. And, you know, he's just like, you know, a friend at this point, and just having a good relationship with someone who knows what you do and the, you know, the things that you put your body through. Like, I am forever grateful for that, to have someone who has to have access to it.
Yeah, I go to Christy O'Connell's gym, and her PT person stays at the gym, and then you can buy her services for the rest of the day.
That's awesome.
So cool. I
For
never
sure.
realized how much relief you can get from that.
Yeah, I know. More people need to try it. I really, really do think so. Even if you're like, needles, it's still worth it.
Yeah. Do you work with a nutrition coach for
I do.
fuel? Okay.
Yep. So do you guys know who Meredith Root is?
Mm-hmm.
Meredith used to compete in CrossFit. I think she stopped last year or 2 years ago. But I work with her with part of their company, Tactic Nutrition. So Alex has also been a little helpful for me in times that, you know, Meredith might be away or is, you know, out for a bike ride or, you know, doing some extra work. So as far as competing, like all weekend long at semifinals, all weekend long during quarterfinals, like I've had, you know, 100% access to her and her time, which has been super helpful. But I signed up with them back in November, and I have had nothing but great, you know, progress and have seen great changes. And I would highly recommend them to anybody.
Well, I was listening to one of your other podcasts that you did with Misfit Gang, and, you know, kind of just chatting about how, you know, 2020 was rough for a lot of us, you know, especially with trying to train and doing all that at home. And then you talk about that there was kind of this shift that happened, and a lot of that had to do with your personal life and with your boyfriend. And since that shift, you know, we've seen that you were 12th into the quarterfinals in North America, and now you're 9th, and then you go to Syndicate, and now you've punched your ticket this year. So talk a little bit about some of that shift that's happened in your life.
Yeah. So Ben and I have been together. My boyfriend have been together almost like 20 months now. We've been talking for almost 2 years, really. But that has been, you know, the best thing that's happened to me is, you know, talking with him was the best decision I ever made. But he came out here to Scranton because of COVID. So he actually worked at Scott Panchik's gym out in Mentality, out in Menor, Ohio. And he was there full time as their manager and coach as well. And then when COVID hit, he was looking for something that, you know, could be a little bit more financially stable, a little bit less risk. And he's an engineer through school. So he went to Case out in Cleveland as well. So he got a job here with Procter & Gamble, P&G, who, you know, they make all of your toiletry products, all that stuff, you know, toilet paper, Bounty, all that stuff. So he got a job with them, which one of their plants is about 40 minutes from where we live. And he came to the gym, and, you know, that was that. So it actually took a while for us to really talk and meet. He came, I think, in June, and we really didn't talk until September, just because his schedule was so different than mine, and we didn't see each other. So yeah, he was one of the best changes I have ever had. And he is a huge reason why I have had so much success going forward. So 2020, COVID, you know, the online games, and then 2021 was still kind of going through the COVID stuff. So my semifinal, I decided to do online. I actually chose Atlas Games as my first choice, and being 12th in North America, I think that was why I got it. I took a risk there, knowing that I'm a better competitor being on the floor, being live. So I took a risk because my open went well, my quarterfinals went well, and I was like, okay, let's see if this is really going to hold true. And then I was a hot mess in my semifinal. So Atlas Games, being online, not knowing other girls' scores, like that really, really impacted me mentally. And I just, I didn't have a great outcome. Not that I had a bad one either, but looking at the leaderboard and looking at things that could have happened, should I have hit one more snatch in the one workout, like that was it. That was the piece that I missed. And so it's just little things like that. And that was a lot of fuel to my fire for this coming year. And I kind of reevaluated of whether or not I wanted to compete competitively. And Ben and I decided to give it another year and really go all in. And he was, fully on board with that and fully supportive of that. And we are living together now. So we've been living together for almost over a year now, actually. So that was a decision that, came from the two of us. And without his support, I wouldn't have been able to make the changes that I have. And nutrition was a big one, and working with Meredith and Tactic, and just having those small little habit changes, journaling, making sure I'm getting to bed on time, eating well. All of those things have played a factor, and just kind of that compound effect of everything, kind of happens, and you don't see success for a while, and all of a sudden it kind of just shoots up, and you're like, oh shit, okay, so all
those
of
little things matter.
really working. Yeah. And then just as the sport evolves, like the programming evolves. So Misfit, they continue to find things that work and things that don't work, and they continue to change what they're programming, and really putting an emphasis on warming up and cooling down, and doing all those little things that they're annoying and they're a pain in the ass, but if you really, really take the time to do them, you see benefit from it. So I can't emphasize that enough. Like warming up, cooling down, zone 2 work, like all that stuff has been a huge, huge reason that, I've seen some great changes.
Mm-hmm. I want to backtrack just a little bit to Ben. So we know there was a connection. How did that connection come about? Like, how did you know each other existed?
So when he first moved to the gym, there were a couple of times that he came to a class that I would coach. When he first moved to Pennsylvania, he was on like shift work. So he would be like a day shift for a couple of days, and he'd have to go to night shift. Like his schedule was wild. I don't know how he functions half the time. Since then he's gotten a new job, but we had a kickball tournament at our gym, and it was an all-day thing, and everyone was out in the parking lot. Everyone was having a blast, and Ben actually worked that day, so he didn't get there till later in the evening. And I had a few beverages at the time, I won't lie. So I was feeling really, really good.
Atta girl.
And we just hit it off in the evening. He, we just started talking, and we were talking in the parking lot for so long. And I was actually going to a friend's house, to the owner, Kalina's house, and she lives 5 minutes from the gym. And Ben was driving home, and he ended up going to Wegmans to grocery shop until he got a text message to come over and hang out for a little bit. So then Kalina, her husband Joe, Ben, and we stayed up talking for a couple hours late in the night, and I ended up falling asleep on the couch and not saying goodnight to anybody. It was just a long day. But then the next morning I messaged him, and I was like, I'm so sorry, I fell asleep on you guys. And, we went out, we planned a dinner date from there, and then it just blossomed.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love those stories.
He's a rom-com guy. So.
Found love through kickball.
No, Ben, yeah, he is quite the romantic too.
Well, we're gonna have to have you back on because we do couple shows.
All right. He'd be in. Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
So I didn't get to be in person at the Syndicate, but Scott definitely was there. But the thing I've heard him say the most about your performance was just how consistent that you were. So how did you feel about what first of all, tell us about how your experience was there, the workout, and then did you also feel, man, I'm really consistent this weekend?
Yeah. So my goal going into the weekend was do your best to be in the top 5 for every event, and that you're going to podium in the top 5. So not quite how it played out, but I couldn't, second best is to be top 10 in every event. And I think I had 3 8th place finishes and then 3 top 5 finishes. So the biggest thing for me was going in with confidence and knowing that, placing 9th in in quarterfinals, you're on a clean slate now. Everyone's had a couple months to prepare for semis, but you still have the confidence of like, okay, you're going in as a threat and you need to compete that way. But also knowing there will be girls who might come out of the woodwork that, you don't even know their names that, are coming in, and, that happened that weekend. And, Gabby McClellan had a solid performance that weekend. Just kind of slipped up on the last day. And I knew that if I can just hold steady throughout the entire weekend, that I was going to come out on top. So I went in with confidence. I went in feeling really, really good about the weekend and feeling like I could qualify, and I knew I belonged there.
What's great about your performance there is that it was so consistent. You felt like you were firmly planted in that top 5 as a spectator. But with only 6 events, it can be skewed really quickly.
Right. Yeah. If you, look at Christy O'Connell, she, really, really had to fight to come back after day 1. And, that's her games experience comes into play there, but also she is just a gritty athlete and she knew exactly what she had to do. And she just did her best to do that. And you could tell.
Well, I would say you're a gritty athlete. You remind me a lot of like an early Tia. Like you just go about your business in that gritty way. There's nothing flashy.
Right.
You're just getting the job done.
Yeah. And, a lot of that, I'm not like, I don't have a huge social media following. Like my being on my phone is not part of the job for me. Like if, people want to follow me, it's because they're truly a fan or they're truly a friend of mine. And I that's not the important stuff. And I think for some that can easily be a distraction, and a lot of people can find, their self-worth in it. And I've learned the importance of the people around me, and the people who I'm with here at home are who matter. And they're the ones that are there with me at the competition or cheering from back home. And they're the ones that's what matters for me. So going in and just getting the job done, not, having to doll up and, look the part, that's not important to me. And, maybe part of it should be, but it's not what makes me the athlete that I am. And it's not something that like, I feel like I need to change.
Yeah.
If you're like a true fan of hockey, like a 1-0 score is awesome. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what you are. You're just,
Thanks.
You're grinding on the boards. You're fighting for the puck. You're doing everything you can, and you get the job done. The flashiest thing about you is your mom's t-shirts.
That is accurate. She will definitely appreciate that. She's the best.
Every time she'd walk by, you'd see the bedazzled Paige's mom.
I love it.
She actually, it's funny because that's, she'll go up to people and she'll go, "I'm Paige's mom." And that's it. Like, she won't even say her first name. Like, "Mom, you have a name."
Do you have any siblings?
She's funny. I have an older brother. Yeah.
Okay.
He is going to be, I'm going to be 31. He'll be 34 this year. He is a state trooper.
Okay.
So, yeah. So he's busy with his job. Right. That's for sure. But yeah, he lives here as well. So my parents and my brother lives with his girlfriend. They live down in Pittston, and I live about 25 minutes away up in Oliphant, closer to the gym that I coach at.
Yeah.
But my mom comes and does CrossFit up here as well. So
love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My brother does CrossFit as well. He goes to a gym closer to home for him, NEPA CrossFit, which is actually where I used to coach as well. I'm no longer there, but I still have a ton of friends and support from those guys as well. So that's definitely part of my story is being at NEPA. And but yeah, my brother used to be really, really competitive with CrossFit, but being a trooper kind of takes over your life. So
yeah,
but yeah.
So your relationship with your mom seems so tight. And as a self-proclaimed mama's boy, like, I appreciate that so much.
Yeah.
And my mom has been to everything I've ever done.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, my mom was the one that drove me 2 hours just for a 60-minute hockey practice and then 2 hours home. So like we lived in the car and we lived at hockey rinks. And not that my dad wasn't super supportive. He worked more jobs and was constantly busy. So my mom was the one that, kind of took the reins as far as making sure that I got to where I needed to be. And she always supported me. And, she is a huge reason of where I am today and why I get to do what I do. And, to this day, she still supports it. Like if there's a local CrossFit competition, she's like, all right, what time? Where do we have to go? Like she loves it.
I love that too. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Amy. How cool was it that at the Syndicate they had that little family area in the end zone? So your mom is sitting there waiting for you at the finish line every time.
Every time. She was awesome. And then on the last day, they let more people go back there. So we had let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 or 6 people come from here, from where I live. From the gym, came to watch all weekend long. So that last event, the last day, they got to be right there. So that was super, super cool. And just a really awesome moment to have your people there to celebrate with and to know that, like, you just qualified again for the CrossFit Games. So it's a very, chilling moment.
What's funny is the MAC actually learned from that. And the next weekend, they let everybody down the whole weekend because it made for better TV.
It did. And, it was kind of crazy. Like I would have thought that, there'd be more fans in the stands, but and not that like really matters to me. I just love being out on that floor no matter what. You get the loud music, you get the commentating going. You really can get in the zone. But I was surprised that there weren't a ton of seats filled. But
yeah, it was an odd arena because they were so far up off the floor and there were so many seats that you could spread out.
Yeah, right.
And so it made it, I think it made it look worse than it was.
Right. But getting to fill in that back area at the finish line was awesome. That's a really cool feeling. And you can just feel the energy from that.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to add that I loved your post when you were talking about both of your parents, always supporting you and all that. And you said, even at 30 years old, and I was giggling to myself because I'm 43 and I play in a beer volleyball league and my parents will still show up sometimes.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's so awesome. I'm sure they're there wanting to tailgate and hang out. Yeah. Listen, my parents are the same way. If you tell my mom like, hey, we got a cooler in the trunk, let's go hang out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Game. She's all for it. So they enjoy it. They have a ton of fun with it. And I, again, super grateful, super, super thankful for what they do. And, same with my brother, like he's 34. He'll, they support him the same exact way. So it's really awesome.
So how did you celebrate after that weekend?
We went to what's it called? We went to a barbecue place. I think Calhoun's maybe. Okay. I don't remember if that's the name. I think it is, but it was just the whole group of friends that came down for the weekend, and then all of our Misfit crew. What was really cool this year was our guys from Misfit, like I had my coach there, Gabe. So he came for the weekend, but nobody else was able to come down because Drew, the head coach of Misfit, the head owner, he had his athlete, Luka Ducic, out at CrossFit Lowlands. So a group of them went out there. I think Matt Sherb had his athlete as well, Holly. So those guys were already away for the same weekend. And the media guy, Ted, he also went with them, but he ended up working out to get a videographer and a photographer here at Syndicate, which I thought was really, really cool. And that, you know, I kind of got to get my journey that weekend documented. So I was really happy and thankful about that. But so those guys came with us as well. And then I don't know if you guys know Ty Randall. He does a ton of photography for CrossFit.
Oh yeah.
He's also a friend of ours. My mom became really good friends with him just through events like this. And he came and had dinner with us as well. And then I had a glass of champagne, just one. I really wasn't in the mood for much more. And then we went and got some ice cream too. So that was pretty, yeah.
There in Knoxville?
What's up?
You got the ice cream in Knoxville?
Yeah. We were downtown. I also forget the name of that place. The girls were all dressed up in their outfits, though. It was kind of cute. I think you might know.
It was the soft serve.
Yeah.
Something bar. It's a farm.
Yes. I forget what it was called, though.
Yeah, my wife and I went there.
Good. Yeah, it was good. We had a great time. My parents and I and Ben, we stayed at an Airbnb together. And normally I wouldn't want to stay with my parents on a weekend like this, but over time you kind of grow up and, you know, you respect your parents, they respect you. And my mom and dad are super laid back. So it's just, you know, it's just like being at home. Like it just felt super comfortable. And that's, you know, part of having a successful weekend is having that comfort level there. But it was super, super easy, super laid back. And we just enjoyed the time there. So even the moments where I wasn't competing and we were just at the Airbnb, like, you know, you get your mind off of CrossFit, you put a movie on and you just hang out. And I, you know, that's a big part for me is just having that comfort outside of the venue and getting away from that stress.
Yeah, because you need the mental break too. I mean, not only do you need a physical break, but you need that mental break from CrossFit and training. So go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
I found some of your merchandise online. What does burn it down mean?
I got it on. So that was just a theme that Drew created for our semifinals this year was going into Operation Semifinals. Mission is to burn it down and just go in and give your best and really just bring that fire into semifinals. And, when we get to sell shirts like this and get kind of, you make that big deal out of it, like people go crazy for it. And it's such an awesome feeling. The lady that does our stuff, we call her Jabs. Her name is Jen. But she would randomly text me and be like, your shirts are selling off the racks and you are killing it. So keep it up. And it's part of what pays for our trip. And it's a reason that, we can make this as, less stressful as possible. So it's just, Drew is super creative with the stuff that he comes up with. And they, Misfit Athletics, Sharpen the Axe, it's the same owners. It's their apparel company. And they put out some really awesome stuff. So if you haven't been on Sharpen the Axe, you got to go. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I might have to buy those the wristbands.
Oh, they're great.
Put it down on it.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah. So how has your training since then amped up?
Actually, this week is really kind of my first week really ramping it back up. So I took the last 2 weeks, kind of chill out. I actually took 4 full days off after the Syndicate. The Monday after we actually drove home, it was like a 10-hour drive home. So, but it was with my mom and dad and Ben. We were pretty snug in the car. Yeah. But I really like driving when we can, because you can bring so much stuff and not have to pay for baggage and luggage and all that shit. So, and again, just growing up, like driving everywhere for hockey, it's kind of a comfort for us. Like I'd rather drive to Madison this coming year than fly, so I can bring whatever I need to. I did that last year as well. So like I'll drive out, my parents will fly out, and then I'll fly home and they'll drive the car home. So
that's a sweet
that's
deal.
a little bit easier. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so I actually took 4 full days off, which is the most I've actually fully taken off from any CrossFit or any fitness really in general. So I really gave my body some TLC these last 2 weeks and had some fun. I did Murph with the gym. Was sore for a few days from that because, it's been a while since I wore a vest but I broke it up and just had fun with it and had fun with the community again. And then last week jumped in class a couple times to get back in the groove and start moving my body again. And then Ben and I took a little beach trip this past weekend just to soak up some sun before we dive right back into training. So I'm pretty much in the gym every single day through games training because Sundays are an easy day to get a lot done. So that keeps me in the gym every single day. So we really don't get much of a break. So I try to get it in when we can.
Do you think you could have taken that break had you not been the first semi?
No. No, like going into Atlas Games this weekend, like it's going to be a pretty quick turnaround for those that do qualify, but it's me and Gabe, my coach, like we know how my body works at this point and we know how I deal with volume and heavy training. So like even after something like Atlas Games, I would have to take a couple days off just because, I'm 30 now. Like that's a big deal. But I've just learned over time that, if I try to rush back into something, it's going to hurt me more than help me. So, I would be feeling the pressure to want to get back into it. And again, that would make me want to rush things more so than not. So, but
yeah,
it's nice getting to relax for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think it's quite the advantage for you guys who did week 1.
Yeah.
Because you do have a little more time to kind of set up your schedule and be right going in.
Right. I actually so they still sent out a survey if you had any restrictions or anything like that. And they didn't ask you like what level, like what order you'd put your preferences in, but I wrote it down anyway. And I actually said I wanted Atlas Games first. And then they're like, no, you can do the first weekend. I was like, okay, here we go.
And now
but it worked out.
Yeah.
And now that you've made it, and really, that was a stacked field. And there were some big surprises.
Yeah. What surprised you?
Gabby, of course.
Yeah.
Jumping up in there. Ariel not making it.
Yeah. I agree. It's you just never know. Like the field is just getting so competitive and anything could happen. Like look at the men's side with Will Morad. That last event and
81
it blows my mind.
Yeah.
Blows my mind. It's crazy. So
yeah, and
a lot of exciting things to watch.
That has to be a huge confidence builder for you that you were firmly in that top 5 all weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I went into day 2 and 6th, but other than that, I don't even remember. It doesn't matter.
Right.
The thing that matters is like you're in the top 5 and now it scores reset and you get ready for the games. So
you said when you were doing the Atlas Games online that you weren't really able to see the other people score and you thought that hurt you. Are you an athlete are you looking at the leaderboard like at Syndicate, or are you having somebody else do that for you?
I don't really pay attention to the numbers very much.
Yeah.
Like I'll just look at the leaderboard, and it's funny because I'll be like, oh my God, I need to do so well in this next event to get so-and-so score. And Ben's like, no, really, you just need to get like 2 places higher. I'm like, how do you know these things? Right. Like, I don't pay attention enough to the numbers, but Ben does and Gabe does, and they're very analytical with that. So I'm like, okay, I don't have to stress about that stuff. And that's great. I don't want to stress about it. Like the less decisions and things that I need to focus on at a competition, the better.
Mm-hmm.
I also read somewhere, and I'm going to go completely off track here, but that if you could have an unlimited supply of anything, you said you would want puppies.
Yeah, 100%.
Are you a dog mom?
I am not currently a dog mom. I have 2 cats. They're over here on the couch sleeping, so I won't disturb them.
Yeah.
I've had them since college though. So, but when I first moved back home to Pennsylvania, I lived at home with my parents for a while, and they had to have a separate floor from our dog, Hammer, because he is a big 90-pound pit bull. He's 10 years old, but he acts like a puppy all the time. And he is just a little too rough, and they're too scared of him. So Ben and I have talked about when would be the right time for us to get our own puppy. So it's in the works, but not really. So we just haven't fully decided when is a good time yet. Competing and traveling too much right now, it's not ideal. So, but I get my fill of my puppy friends every single day. So the owner has two dogs, 2 pit bulls. Like we're very, very much advocates, and we love our rescues. So I definitely, I get my friendship time with those guys all the time at the gym. But yes, I would definitely take some puppies.
There's nothing better than coming home from being away for 3 weeks of semifinals and your dog just wanting to be all over you.
Yeah.
100%. It's the best. Even my cats, they're super cuddly. So, they sleep on me every night. Like they spoon in between both of my arms. So like Ben has to have his own side of the bed because they just want to cuddle up all the time. So yeah, it's a good feeling.
So I know we're coming up close to an hour, but I do have another question for you about training that I'm curious about. So for us regular athletes that just train 1 hour a day or whatnot, and maybe do local comps and things like that, one thing that a lot of us in, I would say this area, don't train is swimming, just because, we don't really have access to that.
Yeah.
So how do you incorporate swimming, and when do you incorporate? Are you year-long swimming, indoors, outdoors? How's that work?
I probably should be more of year-round, just because it's something that, like, if you're not practicing it and you're not getting in the water, you can kind of, it takes a while to condition back into it. Someone like Tia, who's pretty much been a fish since she's a baby, living in Australia and being super active, like it comes pretty easy for someone like that. Or, other Misfits, Kenzie, Riley, China Cho, they were swimmers in college. So, they don't need to do it as much. But going into Wadapalooza, we have a 14-year-old that is pending videos going to qualify for the CrossFit Games. They're still waiting on, the finality of all of that. And, but it's another Sabatini. So I've been to the games with the Sabatini now for quite a while. And leading into Wadapalooza, we swam quite often. And it was, her getting comfortable in the water because she's never been, and me really, really trying to, start to rack up some volume there. But we have an awesome, awesome swim coach, a friend of ours, and she goes to the gym. Her name is Beth Cholish, and she coaches a club team out of Marywood University. It's the Pacers Swim Club. So we get to get in the water with her, teens and her young athletes, and she'll write up a workout for us, and she'll give us an hour in the water, once, twice, 3 times a week if we need it. And she has been nothing but a blessing as far as, getting comfortable being in the water. So we are over at Marywood University, which, starting up this week, we're going to start really ramping up some swim time. And the Sabatinis have their aunt and uncle have a lake house out at one of the local lakes. So we'll start to get some open water in as well. But we're actually pretty lucky, pretty fortunate to have access to a pool and to the lake. So and to actually have eyes on us and really kind of help us out there. So normally if I would go swimming by myself at like the YMCA, I would, do a couple laps. You're like, okay, I'm warm. What are we doing today? All right, let's practice 100-meter repeats. And it's like, no, swim workouts are hard. There's a lot more to it than just, swimming back and forth and swimming laps. So I learn a ton every time I go, and I just get more and more comfortable getting in the water. And I don't love it. I'm not great at it, but it's not something where I'm intimidated by it anymore. So like being at Wadapalooza, seeing a swim event pop up, I was actually more nervous about rowing than I was about swimming. So it's definitely becoming, something that I'm a lot more comfortable with. And I think after this year, it's only going to get better.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So when you're back in Columbus, what's the one place you have to visit?
Ooh, have you ever been to Starliner Diner? It's out in Hilliard, I think.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a Cuban restaurant.
So
really
good.
love that place. Yeah, really kind of a hole in the wall. So that's a go-to. But just I love visiting campus, and football game days were the absolute most fun.
Yes, they are.
We didn't get to go to like too many games, but so the men's hockey arena is kind of down the street from the shoe, but the women's arena is right at St. John's Arena. So it's right there.
Yeah.
So the school sessions, we would just like pop our head out of the locker room and just see everything going on, like those pep rallies. So they were a ton of fun. So yeah, I definitely have to go back and get on campus and just, revisit.
Absolutely.
Nostalgia. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you said, Amy, you have a son?
Yeah, I have my son just finished his freshman year there.
Nice. That's awesome. What is he planning on studying? Do you know?
Well, he started with thinking about maybe athletic training, and now I think moving more into business. But
okay.
Yeah. So, still figuring things out. Yeah.
I would say do it in the first year or two, because that's otherwise you're stuck, or you're changing majors and having to take a lot more time in school.
Yeah. And how are you supposed to know at 18 what you really want to do?
I don't. Yeah. I didn't know either. I really didn't. I was too naive, and I wish I could go back and change that, but I also don't, because then I wouldn't be here. So. Right.
Yeah, I didn't figure it out till 49.
Yeah.
See, I still feel like I know that like I don't think I'll coach the rest of my life. I'm not really sure. Like, I'm not sure which direction I want to go in. And I'm not someone who can, some people are great at multitasking, can work a full-time job, can go to school, can do all these things. But like, I'm the kind of person that wants to do or needs to do one thing and do it really, really well. Mm-hmm. And right now for me, that's competing. So I'm 30, and I'm not really sure what I want to do with the rest of my life, but I feel like I still have some time to figure that out.
And all you have to worry about is right now anyways.
Yeah. So
there's something beautiful about living in the present.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's kind of where I am.
Yep. Well, we're so excited to watch you in Madison, and wish you the best of luck on your continued training and on your performance in Madison. And thank you very much.
We hope you burn it down.
Yes.
That's the plan. That is going to be the theme of training. That's for sure. I appreciate you guys for having me on as well. So thanks for reaching out. I'm glad you did.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
All right.
All right. We'll see ya.
All right.